Burnout to All Out fam, I am so excited for you all to get a chance to hear from the cream of the crop. These are our Burnout to All Out Elevate 360 mastermind clients who've been in my mastermind, high-level mastermind, all year this year. And we do a summit once a year with our mastermind clients to debut their zone of genius. What is incredible is that these clients all embody a 360 degree approach to business. They all contribute in one way, shape, or fashion as subject matter experts that contribute to the pillars of Elevate 360, which is truly that we believe that bodies build businesses and that we have to have business strategy and legacy strategy as well. And so what is really cool about these clients is that through a series of a couple of days of a summit, they were able to highlight and bring value and educate in their fields, whether it was around self-leadership, leadership in business, business strategies, energetics and mindset, and or legacy and how we take what we're doing and make our money work harder than we did for it to create impact and legacy over time. And so they really embody all that represents the 360 degree approach to business and the Burnout to All Out through line of our mastermind. So over the next couple of episodes, you are going to hear from all of these experts. You're going to get the details to their work in the notes section. And hopefully you're inspired as well as to what is possible for you as an entrepreneur and scaling your businesses the way these incredible human beings have. So hope you enjoy this series.
So excited to have you here. Let's just keep the conversation going. I want to start with just a formal introduction to Dr. Emily. So she has spent over a decade in family practice before discovering functional medicine, which she used to reverse her own rheumatoid arthritis. I can't wait to talk about this, actually. A condition she had battled since childhood. Today, she empowers high-performing women to overcome chronic conditions, regain energy, and feel like themselves again. With firsthand experience of the body's incredible ability to heal when given the right support, Dr. Emily is passionate about helping others tap into their own healing potential. Today, Dr. Emily is going to share how she found functional medicine and has used it to reverse her own RA she's had since 10 and how that put her on a mission to help others heal, and how she focuses her practices on healthy lifestyle and the foundation of healing. So welcome to the summit, Dr. Emily. I know your hair was on fire with the last discussion.
I have to say, it was resonating quite highly with everything that Dr. Thea said.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump right in to how you discovered functional medicine? Would love, I know we're going to get into how you reversed your RA and all the things, but how did you get into functional medicine from being a practitioner, in the practice for over a decade?
Yeah, well, I really think there was some divine intervention going on for me. I was in primary care and an article came across my desk written by Dr. Mark Hyman, who some of you know. He's a really highly sought after speaker in functional medicine. And the article was discussing how food can create inflammation. And here I am 10 years into primary care, been through med school residency, had never heard that. I'd never heard that. So I was intrigued and I thought, well, what is this? And so I dove in a little bit to his suggestions were change your diet and you'll lower inflammation. So I did that. And within a couple weeks, I was able to actually stop one of my medications I had been injecting myself with weekly. It was that powerful. So that really was like a light bulb moment. What is this? There's something very powerful here in functional medicine. I need to learn more. So I started listening to every podcast I could get my hands on, reading every book, starting to just put all these different new practices I was learning into my own life and kept seeing improvement after improvement. Ultimately went on to get certified in functional medicine through the Institute for Functional Medicine. And through the whole process of implementing it on myself, I now don't take any medications for rheumatoid arthritis, and I feel amazing. So you can imagine that sparks someone to say, okay, I need to tell others. So that is my mission now, is to let other people know that there is always something we can be doing and there is hope. I had thought I would be on those injectable medications for the rest of my life. So that's why I'm here, and I am dedicated to making an impact for others.
So powerful. It's interesting. We just said this with Thea, but it's like, I feel like every single one of you that we've interviewed so far, it's a life journey that has like called you forward to like a larger impact based off the journey that you went through. And had you not been a physician who had also had RA, like you wouldn't be sitting where you are today to be able to make the impact that you're making, right? Like it's just so powerful. Well, before we get into a little bit more of like the science and the medical aspect of it, I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs on the line. I love asking this question. I'm just really curious how you made the calculated pivot from individual practice to entrepreneur. And I know there's a number of people in the chat who have already been asking Thea, like, how do you get your fee for services? Maybe we'll get into that. I don't know if you take insurance from everyone or if you're taking private pay clients, but I'm just curious. Let's just start. I'm like ADHD over here, but like, let's just start with the pivot from the practice. Like, what did that look like for you? Again, as healthcare providers, very risk adverse, right? And spending all that time in school. Obviously, you're still practicing as a physician, but like the pivot itself out of like the day to day, like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, I'll say it was scarier than all get out, like really very scary. I had this beautiful patient base, people I had known for, my whole career, basically, that I was very attached to. That was one part of it, was feeling like I was abandoning them, needed to work. I did a lot of inner work to work on that piece, but it really came down to just this gut instinct, this knowing that I was supposed to be doing something different. My favorite patients I would see in primary care would be the ones that I got to talk about lifestyle change with, and then they'd actually go do something with that and come back and feel better. That like made my whole week, but that would be like one patient a week, maybe, And I could see that the gifts that I had and the skills, that the kind of like what Thea said, that the part of my job that lit me up was not what I was doing most of the time. And so I really realized I needed to leave primary care. I did start trying to do functional medicine within my primary care practice, but there is so much education. There's so much time involved in diving deep with somebody in functional medicine. It really can't, I could not do it in that model of a 15-minute appointment. So I have opened my own business, which was a really steep learning curve, no business training here. And I do not take insurance at this point. So that was a big shift and a big pivot. And what I realized was the insurance companies are helpful to a point. We really love them if we have a heart attack, cancer, something where we need a lot of work, a lot of help. For reversing chronic illness, they are not very beneficial. And honestly, they tie the doctor's hands quite a bit, time-wise, resources-wise. And I didn't want to work for the insurance company anymore. I wanted to work for my clients. And so now the clients I see, that it's cash-based, which I will say also puts a little more skin in the game.
I was actually just going to jump in on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because my soapbox is premium clients, and premium clients doesn't necessarily mean they've got $1 million in the bank. Premium clients, it's about the radical responsibility and desire for the results, right? And so
exactly.
I'm sure you see this, and I see this in every industry. Like, you can't judge the value an individual puts on their health regardless of their income. I look at even my house manager, who is a 20-something, and the amount of her paycheck she spends on her health from like a functional perspective is insane compared to someone who has, health insurance and 12 chronic illnesses and is making $300,000 a year and doesn't show up for their doctor's appointments. Right. And so it's that premium client mindset. This is where I wanted to double down with you on with your clients is with that skin in the game is the accountability piece, right? When you're paying, like for someone to be willing to cash pay from my biased lens, they're already more motivated.
Yeah, we're not playing around, right?
Right.
And yes, and so much of functional medicine is lifestyle change based, which is
Mhm.
something that I can't do for you. It's very much a different aspect of not the doctor's going to heal me, but the patient's going to heal themselves with my guidance, and so that it takes a committed, dedicated client. It's not for everyone. Like I am not for everyone. It is just for those who are really ready to go.
Mhm. I love this. And there's so many parallels, right? Like I think about our Elevate 360 mastermind, right? There's only so many entrepreneurs who are willing to not only focus on business strategy, but also the energetic inner work that needs to be done. There's only a select few that are going to show up and actually do that work. And I think that what you've been able to master beautifully is your own personal kind of branding and impact and like the category of one that people come to for that transformation, for that experience. I think I want you to be an inspiration to everyone watching that you can have an incredibly thriving practice with cash paying clients who show up, do the work, get the results. And I don't want to project for you, but it probably creates this really positive, energetic feedback loop for you to be working with clients who show back up and say, I made the changes. Here's the results I got. There's got to be a lot of self-satisfaction in your day-to-day as a practitioner that like, these are the only people that you're willing to work with, right?
Yeah, the joy I got from that one client a week went to the joy I get with all my clients day in and
Yes.
day out. And it's just so gratifying, and it fills my cup so I can keep doing this instead of in primary care where I felt like my tools were wasted. I was drained, my energy was drained at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Now I'm kind of on fire and ready to go.
Yes. Well, and let's talk about scale because you've been able to scale. I know you've got a thriving practice, but you also have coaches in the business. For those of you listening or watching the replay where you feel like you're the bottleneck because you can only see so many patients a day. So what have you done to create even more impact in your practice and be able to serve more patients without it solely going through you every single
Yeah,
time?
this is a great question. And this was something I realized I am the bottleneck, and I have to walk the walk of functional medicine. I have to do what I'm telling my clients to do, which is
Mhm.
work-life balance, taking care of myself, eating right, exercising, sleeping. I can't burn the candle at both ends
Mhm.
and tell others to not do that. So I realized that in primary care, I went from seeing, maybe 30 patients a day to now spending anywhere from an hour up to 2 hours with a new client. I can
Mhm.
only see a handful of people a day. So my
Mhm.
impact really dropped when I switched to functional medicine, even though I felt like I was doing better work. And
Your long-term impact for individuals was probably much higher though.
yes, true. But I realized that the vast majority of the benefits that come from functional medicine are coming from the lifestyle aspect that we help you create a beautiful change with.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I am not the only one who can speak to a client about lifestyle. Right.
Mhm.
So what I've done is I have three coaches, board certified functional medicine health coaches that work with me, and they start my clients off to get them on this beautiful lifestyle journey of, what might need to shift in their diet, the way my diet changed my life, like
Mhm.
completely, where's their stress too much that they need to work on that? How are they sleeping? What are they getting enough movement? All of those aspects are now handled one-on-one with their own private coach. And the nice thing about the coach is it becomes this beautiful relationship of support, accountability, cheerleading, really like a confidant, somebody that knows you really well and will tweak and guide the lifestyle changes based on you and your life and what you can handle. And
Mhm.
what we do see, Melissa, is and we see a 63% reduction in symptoms in 3 months' time with a health coach.
Wow.
There's no medicine out there that can do that. And the other piece to it is it's mostly education that now the client is really armed with all of these resources for life, right? Like I don't want to patch someone together and they leave me and they fall back apart. We want to make lasting change and transformation that then they can carry into the rest of their life.
So good. So, so good. Well, and I love that you've been able to clearly create, really SOPs, standard operating procedures that don't even require your face, your voice, or you in this kind of onboarding transformation process for your clients that allows you to scale. I don't know about everyone else, but and I'm a huge Dr. Mark Hyman fan. I listen to him while I'm food prepping on the weekends, and it helps me make good, healthy choices. So, and I've got a couple of his cookbooks, and it has been life-changing, for some of our listeners here and for our participants in the summit who may be new to the idea of like, let's just talk about nutrition, right? And some of the top offenders, maybe when it comes to inflammation, like if you could kind of categorize or give our listeners and participants some insight on maybe some cabinet and refrigerator audit of what may be wreaking havoc on, inflammation with our listeners right now that could quickly, make a difference if they made better choices.
Yeah, I think right off the top, I would say sugar and processed foods are the two kind of, I would say, easiest but hardest things to clear out. Like,
Yes.
processed foods and, sugary things will really just throw us into a full-blown inflammation. So if we can remove some of those and replace them with some whole foods, that makes a huge difference. It's going to really start to lower inflammation. And food is really information for our body. Are we going to be inflamed or are we going to heal? So a shift there. And then the dietary change that I took on was eliminating certain foods that can be offensive for a period of time and then bring them back to see if they're good or not. And so the top two food groups I see be more of a food sensitivity for my clients would be gluten and dairy.
Yeah.
Somebody's looking to take on, one or two things that they want to remove aside from sugar and processed foods. I would say try 3-4 weeks without gluten and or dairy or one or the other and see how you feel. And it is life-changing sometimes. And then, if you are unsure, you bring that food back and you watch really closely those first couple days that you bring the food back. Do I feel worse? How's my sleep? Are my joints acting up? Is my energy down? That can all be from a food sensitivity.
Yeah, it's so good. I often tell my kids pack their own lunches now. And the principle of packing lunches is, you need to have food that rots, right? Does it grow out of the ground, right? They can pull 1 to 2 snacks. Like there can be a granola bar. There can't be a granola bar, a beef jerky, and a string cheese for lunch, right? And so it's like this constant, education just with the kids. But I love what you said about dairy and gluten because I've never been a big dairy person. Probably I went on like a big paleo journey over a decade ago, and I'm not paleo now. I discovered that gluten and dairy, removing them made me feel a lot better. So I've never really drank a lot of dairy to begin with, but our oldest has showed a dairy sensitivity. So we've just completely pulled it out of the house altogether, so nobody has it. And I have found that that's been, once it's just not an option. Like my daughter was like, I'm not drinking coconut milk. This is awful. Like I'm not touching it. Right. And then, a month later, when there's no other option, all of a sudden she'll drink the coconut milk and she'll actually run it through a blender with strawberries and put it in the freezer and make ice cream out of it, So yeah. Part of it is, what do you have to say maybe for folks like me who have children and you're trying to make the transition and you've got some stubborn folks in the house that maybe don't want to go on this journey with you, right? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I really think it depends on the person, whether in your house, it worked to kind of say, this is our only option, and
Mhm.
sometimes you'll get some people can't go that route quite as much. I will say for a child, the children are always watching adults,
Yes.
what we model. So
Mhm.
if they see you day in and day out eating the vegetables, eating the salad, or, whatever, not having the junk food, that's
Mhm.
going to land for them and kind of set a foundation. Having the child incorporated into the food prep process of like,
Mhm.
look at this beautiful tomato. Isn't it gorgeous? Like, let's cut this up and make salsa or whatever, like
Yeah.
having them as part of it is going to make them want to eat it more. But
Yeah.
I do think for the most part, it's a very much a modeling. And
Mhm.
then a question I get a lot is, how do I get my spouse to do what I'm doing? I
Yeah,
feel
my
so
husband
much better.
notoriously will bring a gallon of ice cream home on a Saturday. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? I've been
Yeah.
so good. And like, we don't do dairy in the house. And now there's like a whole bucket of it. And
Yeah.
I'm the one that works from home. So I know where it is all week long while no one else is in the house. Yes. Tell us, how do we handle
Yeah.
Jake in the bucket of
Well,
ice
I
cream?
would say honestly that it has to come from Jake. Like Jake has to be ready to make the change. I've had clients bring their spouse to me kind of, fighting and kicking and screaming, and it never really works. We
Right.
have to be ready for change on our own,
Right.
and so that's really the piece I would say there. But again, the modeling and for your family to see like, wow, I feel so much better because I'm not eating that. That
Yeah.
eventually it takes some longer than others to get there.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about two things here. I want to talk about self-discipline, and then there was something else I wanted to talk about. It's escaped me. Hopefully it'll come back. But like, oh yeah, like, okay, let's talk about the self-discipline piece, right? Like, so everyone's not on board in the family, and you have a really tight regimen and you're really taking good care of yourself, but and you're making the right food choices. Part of the ways I make the right food choices is by the bad food just not being available in the refrigerator. So when someone sabotages that in your household, like, do you have any advice for the temptation because it's right there in front of you to like make the right food choice when there's people in the household sabotaging, bringing home chocolate chip cookies from the office or
Right.
whatever?
I have this conversation with clients a lot that I suggest that you have a conversation to say, okay, the ice cream needs to go in the garage freezer,
Mm,
not in the main freezer. Or if you're
yep.
going to have cookies, they have to be tucked away
Mhm.
where they're not in, that I'm going to walk by them 10 times each day.
Right.
Right. That's not fair because
Right.
willpower will run out. It's like our,
Yeah.
our iPhone batteries. By the end of the day, the charge is low. We're going
Right.
to,
Yeah, and
so
that's when I make the worst choices, right?
yes.
If I haven't paced myself with nutrition throughout the day and it's like 3 or 4 o'clock and there's a Snickers bar out there,
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we want to add friction to the thing we don't want to do, make it harder to find that food. Like you said, keep it out of the house is the best.
Right.
And we want to make it really easy to make a good choice. So having fresh fruits and veggies easily accessible in the fridge, cut up or a fruit bowl, those kinds of things. Nuts and seeds around for you to grab easily can help with that switch. But I would say I hope it's okay to pivot into this, but
Yeah.
I truly believe that if you're new to lifestyle change and this feels overwhelming and you don't have the support of a family, Melissa's a go-getter and Melissa's just going to do what Melissa needs to do. But a lot of us in America, we need some support
Mhm.
in making a lifestyle change. And that is where health coaching is like the most beautiful fit.
Mm.
I truly see like my son was asking me because I was asked to speak to the Institute for Functional Medicine about my health coaching program that I have. And I was telling my son about it. He said, well, Mom, like you can just look on ChatGPT and see what to do. And I was
Yeah,
like, yes, but it's the follow through, right?
100%.
Most people are not going to follow through with major changes without some support. So that's the piece where I feel like everyone trying to walk this walk and needing a little help, that a health coach can be your best tool. And I wish everyone in America could have a health coach experience.
I love this, Dr. Emily, and like I know you said I'm a go-getter, but I actually like, don't give me that much credit. I know how to delegate to hold me responsible, right? So the reason I am ridiculous about my nutrition and my fitness is because I have hired a trainer that I work with on a weekly basis. And I have like, I'm a geek, like I'm a data analytics person. Like I have the Whoop strap and I also have the, is it the Hume scale? Like I scan my body and I actually can see the percentage of body fat drop and the percentage of muscle mass growth. I can see my metabolic age and how I'm reversing in age and where the contributing factors are. And where I'm going with all of this is if my coach didn't check in with me every week and I wasn't held accountable to these biomarkers every week, I wouldn't make the lifestyle choices. I wouldn't make them. Right. And so like, I love what you're saying about everyone needing a coach. Like I have a spiritual mentor that holds me accountable. I have nutrition and health mentor. I have 2 business coaches in different spaces. Right. So like, don't give me too much credit. I actually hire people to hold me accountable. Right.
Perfect. Yeah. I really think our, I'm speaking about America, but I think it's true most places. Our society is not set up for health. If you look at the statistics, it's really quite depressing. The amount of chronic illness, I think, Dr. Thea was talking about all the medications that we're on, so it's like swimming upstream to be healthy in America. You have to do the opposite of what all your friends and family are doing.
Right.
And that's really challenging. And so, we've built a community, we've built this program to help hold your hand, be a guide, and lovingly help push you in the right direction.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that and like how people can access your coaches?
Sure. Yeah. So I created a program. It's called Health Begins Here. And it is a 3-month-long program where you are assigned your very own coach. You stay with the same person the whole time. You meet twice a month and start to take on what seems appropriate for you. So the coach really gets to know you at the very first visit and like, what's your day-to-day life like? And it becomes apparent to myself or a coach what the low-hanging fruit is, if that makes sense. Like this thing that you're doing regularly, if we tweak that just a little bit, it's going to give you payoff in big dividends, right? So the coach will recommend changes to make, and then you start to try to implement them with a lot of support and help and resources. And then you check back in and you tweak that plan. How did that go? Did that work for you? Should we change it up? Are you ready to add something new? And we just keep adding and building from there. And like I said, within a course of 3 months in that program, we do see on average 63% reduction in symptoms. So most of the time, people are extremely pleased. Some choose to stay longer because they have some more significant changes to make. And a lot of people graduate and just feel amazing after having done that work. So whether a client chooses to go on and work with me beyond that, which is an option, again, my goal is to set it up so that the majority, the masses can have access to this coaching program and not necessarily need me.
Well, and you know what I love about this is, there's a million things I love about this, but you're giving people the lifelong skill set through the journey with you or the coaches, right? So that they can kind of graduate and self-manage, or maybe they continue to need the accountability. Listen, I'm almost 46 years into my life and know exactly what I should be doing on a weekly basis. But having someone checking in, being like, what are your markers this week? How, give me the data. It's literally just the accountability sometimes for us to like make sure it's a priority, even if you know what you need to be doing, right?
Yes, that's really, really powerful. And yeah, so that's what I've tried to create here. And I am in the program. So I have lots of recorded content on different topics, that hours and hours that people are, can use and watch. And I am overseeing the coaches. So regularly I'm meeting with the coaches. We discuss every case. So I know exactly where you are and I can give guidance and help tweak. But it's like I've multiplied myself, right? I have this army of coaches that are an extension of me and allow me to have that kind of impact that I really do want to have. I really want to change the face of healthcare, as Dr. Thea pointed out, really needs some significant changing.
Yes. And I believe with all my soul that both of you are making massive impact, and it starts with your journey. And I love that each of you have been able to kind of operationalize and perfect your methodology and multiply, right? You've been able to literally multiply your impact through kind of taking your intellectual property and process and raise up an army that can help with this movement, right? So good. Well, Dr. Emily, before we wrap up with you, I mean, this is like the catch-all for like the functional medicine practitioner, right? But I'm curious how you're taking a 360-degree approach to business and life, and how you're embodying what the mastermind is all about.
Yeah, it is quite in alignment with functional medicine, where we look at the whole body and all the systems and everything. I think that like I said, I've had to really be very cautious about my own. Once I created my own health, I'm like double down on how to keep it and maintain it, right? So I've had to be very careful along the way. I think the piece that I really got out of this mastermind was that I realized I'm very good at doing and being productive and like take on the next thing and the next thing. There are times where we just actually need to slow down and be in the being, right?
Yes.
And so the opportunities that you've offered us for that, whether it's just like, I've really picked up a daily meditation practice that I'm not going to miss out on. But in some of the live events that we've worked with together, the breathwork sessions that you've done for us, like slowing down is when I get my big inspirations. Really, it's what's making me see the goal and the vision of where I'm going. And that I would have missed that. I would have just gone down, shiny object syndrome, right? Just keep chasing each new thing I wanted to try. And spending time in being and quiet quietness, doing the spiritual work has really allowed me to know this is where I'm going and this is where I need to be focused. So that I appreciate that aspect of your work, Melissa, because I've been in other business containers before, because again, have no business training. So I need people like you. And it's oftentimes all about doing. Right? Work on your funnel, make more emails, send more emails, get on socials, do the videos, whatever. And there's a point where that's just going to drain you and wear you out. And so you have this beautiful balance of helping us to slow down enough, be intentional enough that when we are doing, we don't drain ourselves. So I really do appreciate that.
Yes, that's so true. I love that. I think that's a reminder for everyone as we are sliding into the fall. And I know a lot of us have big business goals. A lot of kids are going back to school, activities are picking back up. And so it's that reminder that even in the midst of busy, we need to take those moments to slow down. Yes. Yeah. So good. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. Do you have any resources that you want to share in the chat before we move on?
Yes. So I've created a guide called How to Reclaim Your Energy in 10 minutes or less a day. And it's little tiny tidbits. This is a lot of what my practice does. We try to implement very small changes, little tiny things that if done over time will really make a big impact. So if your energy is running a little low, we're, burning the candle on both ends, this guide can really give you a jump start to how can you start to implement some of these lifestyle changes into your own life. And if anyone would be interested in learning more about the Health Begins Here program, you can go to my website. Balanced Living Functional Medicine is my business, and you can check that out on there. We'd love to have you. Would love to see you with, make those changes in your life as well.
Awesome.
I hope you found this episode as inspirational and kick-ass as I enjoyed interviewing with it. If you love this and you resonated with it, please reach out to the speakers. Their information is in the notes. Feel free to reach out to us. And as always, if you're curious about mentorship and support and business coaching under the Burnout to All Out umbrella, go to burnouttoallout.co and check out what we have going on in the business mentorship world today, including business coaching and retreats that are live and experiential and take a 360-degree approach to business. We can't wait to see you on the other side wherever we collide.